Now, this group of videos is going to be about figures and tables. And one of the shared characteristics they have is that they float in a document and they float around. And I'll start the discussion by looking at that. So let's share my screen. And here is the relevant web page that we're going to talk through in this group. Okay, and the first thing is figures and tables. Generally, they're too large an entity to be conveniently placed just anywhere on a page. Right? So instead, what happens and what LaTeX does is it does not typeset it precisely where you put the code. Instead, it allows that figure or table to float in the document to a convenient place, either to the top of a page, the bottom of a page, or a page all by itself. Now, one of the things to always remember is to let LaTeX do this. Let it float tables and figures. Do not try to insist that you know better, that you want a figure table precisely here, because that's simply wrong. And there's research to back up that statement. So Colin Wheeldon did a survey of hundreds of readers and found that 77%, as you can read it, of readers said that when a graphic interrupted the reading of an article, that annoyed them. It put off the readers. And remember, in academia, you need to keep your readers. Right? Academics and other researchers have got hundreds of tasks to do. You need to keep them interested. And what Colin Wheeldon found is that readers, when they see a figure in the middle of the body text, it's a natural barrier, and the natural expectation is that you then, when you've reached the figure, you then move to the next page. You don't look underneath, right? Consequently, you put the figure at the top, the bottom page by itself. Now, on a personal level, I experienced this when I was, in particular, when I was assessing a honours project of a good student. I was reading through, and I thought, oh my God, this is just rubbish. Read through a bit more. How could they say this? I thought it was a better student than this. Oh, I'm going to have to mark this down. Read through a bit more. Oh, golly, more rubbish. Certainly not the good student I thought. Read. And then a thought struck me. Hang on a sec. All of those rubbish statements, they were at a page break and a graphic. Maybe there was a hidden line or two of text below the graphic. So I went back to all of the occurrences, and sure enough, the student had forced LaTeX to typeset the graphic in a particular place. There was a line of two of body text underneath the graphic, which I just hadn't read because I'd moved on to the next page. Right. Fortunately, I caught it there. You cannot rely on readers catching. Right. So do not force a graphic. Let them float. Same for tables. Okay, having got that out of the way, let's have a look at tables. How do you typeset a table in LaTeX? Well, not surprisingly, it's using the table environment. And its structure is something like this. Okay, begin table, end table, and then you put stuff to have the table in the middle. Now, what stuff do you have? Well, usually there is a caption which says, table 3 explanation. You include the explanation of the table within the braces of the caption command. Now, a table has a number, table 3, and you're going to cross-reference to that number, so you need to label the table. So you put a label statement after the caption. Then the rest of the environment is whatever instructions you want to typeset the table. Usually it's a tabular arrangement, otherwise you wouldn't really be calling it a table. but sometimes it might be a list or something else. So let's see an example. Okay, so download Fractals 31, and towards the end, there is a table of fractal dimensions. And I've shown this earlier when I talked about the tabular environment, right, and how we generally put it inside a center environment. But now we're going to make it a floatable table because that's the better thing to do. So we wrap around it the begin table, end table with a caption and a label so that we can point to the caption. Typeset that. And where's the table gone? Command click. It's, even though the source, where's the source of this table, right? I've put it just before the bibliography, which is just here, but LaTeX has floated it to a page by itself because there's not enough room for a table, right? And that's good. Typeset it again. And now the table of contents has come into the document at the start. That's pushed the information further down. And now the table, there is room for it on this final page. Right, again, the source of it is just before the references down here. The table's floated to the top of the page so that it does not interrupt the discourse. And that's great, works beautifully. And what else we got? Yeah, so that's all right. Now, 2 comments about tables. Remember that if your data is mostly text with just a little bit of mathematics, then use the tabular environment within a center, just like I did here. All right. And then any particular mathematics you might have, you can, if there's a few bits of mathematics in there, you just typeset it within dollars or backslash parentheses. However, often your data is mostly mathematics, even if it's simply numbers, in which case it's better to typeset it within an array environment within a display environment. Right, so you let the array do the tabular structure, the display math environment makes it all maths. Then those cells which aren't purely mathematical, you type them either as backslash text within braces, or if they're multi-line, as I've mentioned before, use a par box. Now, lines. Emphasize this again for tables. See this table, it's got very few lines. This is good practice. Right, let the grid structure of the table work for you without zillions of horizontal and vertical lines. What about tables of numbers? Remember, tables in a readable document are for readers, are for humans to read. So humans do not read past the first 1 or 2 decimal digits. Okay, so do not bother including any more information unless it's absolutely necessary. So only report as few digits as possible that you need to convey the message. You know, you may know the number to a lot more. Reader won't care, by and large. So this is particularly problematical for errors. I don't know how many times I've had to copy edit documents where people have reported errors to 4 decimal digits, significant digits. And it's completely pointless in almost all circumstances. Not entirely, but almost all. I just truncate them routinely to 2 digits. But really, for an error, one significant digit is all that's justified usually. So don't report more. And I emphasize again, all these statements are not just my opinion, they're widely held by people who are knowledgeable about writing, such as James Hartley here. Round off numbers so that readers can make meaningful comparisons more easily. You know, don't hide the information in trivial, insignificant digits. Now, last comment on tables. You can include a list of tables in your document with the command \list of tables. But, you know, frankly, it's just a bit of bling. I don't know anyone who really reads them. Okay, so that's the first video in this group. The next one is on a start one. The next one is the first of 3 on figures, because they are more difficult.